Hello, everyone. I can't even get the words out too well this morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Looking Up. You could just start off the day by laughing at me, okay? Because I can't get the words out. Welcome to Looking Up. We're glad that you're here with us. I'm Carla Moore, and I'm one of your hosts, and with me is Kathy Pollard, your other host. I'm in Denver right now, sitting in my office at the Bear Valley Bible Institute, and Kathy is in her home in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and we just enjoy these chats that we get to have every week, and we call it a podcast, but really we're just sitting here having a conversation. So we're having fun, and it's good to see your face. And are we still on baby watch?
Yes, we are still on baby watch. Her due date is this Friday, the 18th. So today's what is today?
The 14th.
The 14th.
No, it's the 15th.
Today's the 15th. Yeah. So again, any day now, and hopefully by the time this airs, because we're recording early this week, hopefully by the time this airs next Monday, we will already have a baby here.
Yes, hopefully. I'm sure Janelle is saying, please let me have that
baby. I think she's definitely ready. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that you're in your office, because I've been checking out the bookshelves behind you and being all nosy. And for whoever is watching on YouTube, they're probably doing the same thing, kind of leaning in. What's she got on her shelves
Squinting.
there? What she got?
Our fat poster is right there. I'm going to print a new poster for PTP, and it's not going to have fat on it. So, yeah. There's my little donkey.
And
Can you see my donkey?
Donkey.
Donkey.
Yeah, donkey.
These are the only shelves that I have full. I have interesting things on the other shelves that, I won't show. But anyway, what's going on in your part of the world on your homestead?
Well, okay. So our cow gave birth.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that's big news.
Was Sunday, it a girl or a boy?
It was a boy. She had a boy. Sunday morning, she gave birth. So not this weekend, but next weekend, Lord willing, we'll get to bring her and couple of babies onto our farm. So it's very real. And Jeremy said to us Sunday night, "Are y'all ready?" I was like, "No."
Here she comes. Here they come.
Here they come. And so it's go time for sure. We still have some milking supplies to order and some fencing to put up. And I mean, we've been so swamped with all kinds of things going on, good things.
Yeah. You've been looking forward to this for a long time.
We have, and now it's here. And so every time I think about it, my heart beats a little bit faster. And I'm thinking, this is real. This is real.
I still haven't seen pictures of the barn.
Oh, really?
No, you haven't sent me anything.
Oh, well,
you have to do that today and then share it next week.
Okay.
And by then we'll have, you said, no, not this weekend, but next weekend. Okay.
Next weekend.
Well, about 10 or 12 more days then. That's going to be neat.
Yes.
You've always wanted and dreamed about.
I know. And now that it's here, I'm scared to death, but it'll be good.
It is going to be good. Well, so what else is going on there?
Well, as far as the garden goes, I harvested some potatoes today. And it was kind of an accident because this weed had cropped up in the middle of my raised bed and it got real big. And when I pulled it up, some red potatoes came up out of the ground and they were already full size, and I didn't even realize that they were ready. And honestly, we didn't even plant them. They were volunteer plants that came back from last year. I had decided this year we were not going to plant potatoes, but since they came up on their own, I didn't have the heart to pull them, so I just left them there. And I wanted to share for those of you who are watching, one of them that I dug up this morning. Can you see that?
It's like Mickey Mouse.
I know.
No, it looks like Arthur. Remember Arthur?
Yeah, it does. So for those of you who can't see, it's a big red potato with two little ones stuck on the top of it. And if you turn it around this way, look at that. There's three on this side. Looks like a nose and some scary cricket teeth sticking out there or something. We kind of look alike, don't we?
No, you do not look alike. It's a mutant potato.
It's show and tell today. Here's my potato friend.
Hey, I don't have anything nearly that interesting to show.
Oh, well, that's all right.
What you said that you didn't have the heart to pull them, so you left the others there, or what? What do you mean?
When I first saw that potato plants were coming up earlier in the spring, I was like, oh, look, they came back on their own since I didn't plant any. I didn't have the heart to get rid of them. I just left them there to see if anything would happen. And I dug up quite a few red potatoes this morning, and there's still a couple more plants out there. So
I love red potatoes.
I do too.
Oh, that's unexpected. That's a good surprise. I
Yeah.
used the herb salt that you brought me to roast that chicken the other day, and it was really good. I love the flavor of
Now,
it.
did I say anything to you about not using too much because it is salt?
Mm-mm. But I mean, salt, I understand.
Yeah.
It's not like a seasoning that doesn't have salt in it. Yeah.
Right. Because if you're not thinking about it and you're just treating it like a regular herb seasoning, you might put too much on there, but it is salt. It's straight salt.
Well, and I thought we
Flavored
could just
with
put it
herbs.
on the table too, not keep it in my herb cabinet, but put it on the table to put on different things.
Good idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, the other thing I have to show you, since it's show and tell today, we had Into the Word class last night, and I made lemon poppy seed cookies. So I've had lemon poppy seed muffins,
chicken,
and lemon poppy seed chicken, and lemon poppy seed loaf, but I've never had cookies. And I found this recipe, and they turned out really cute. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
You can see all the poppy seeds in it, and it's got lemon zest and fresh lemon juice, and
I would love
this little glaze on the top. Yeah.
Yum.
So anyway, they turned out pretty good.
Okay, well, since we're having show and tell,
all right.
Interestingly enough, talking about lemon, it's not going to look very nice, but Paige Waddell made a delicious lemon. Actually, Jace, I think, made it, but it's lemon pound cake.
Oh, yum.
She had made it for the picnic that we had last Sunday, and I didn't get any of it. John had a piece, and he told me it was amazing, and he said, you need to get that recipe and all those things. So when we had this past Sunday night, had the new member get together, she made it, or she brought another one. Then she told me that Jace made it, and he's a talented baker. But I grabbed a piece and put it in a Ziploc bag because I didn't figure I'd get one later. And I had a fourth of it on Sunday and a fourth of it yesterday. I'll have a fourth of it today, and again, finish it off tomorrow. Because I mean, it's amazing. It's moist.
You are very disciplined.
Well, sometimes, but
you're eating one slice of cake over 4 days.
Well,
that's impressive.
It's really heavy and rich, so it makes one bite of it it's not enough. I would rather eat the whole piece. I could eat the whole cake, but yeah, it's just a treat. And if John doesn't find out that it's in my drawer, he'll come in here and eat it. But this won't come out until next week, so it'll be gone by then.
That's right. Somehow we both shared something lemony today. It's a theme.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even think about it because it's just sitting in my drawer until you said you had lemon cookies. So I love lemon on anything.
I do too. Savory or sweet. Yeah. You shared that recipe with us several years ago. Had rice and chicken and broccoli and fresh lemon all over it. Yeah. It's so good. So simple, but that lemon makes all the difference.
And I tend to, if I make chicken salad, I'll cut up a lemon, and then every bite I'm squeezing the lemon on top of it. Maybe more than some people want, but I like that fresh lemon flavor on each bite.
Yeah, one of the little kids at Into the Word last night, Grant, he's very small, so it's okay. But he took a bite of it and he made a face and he said, "It's sour." Yeah. Gave it back to his mom. Like, no thanks. The cookie, yeah.
Oh, so it's tart.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that tart, but I guess it is.
Tart is good for me. I like it.
Me too.
Good. You might have to share that recipe then.
Yeah. Does my shirt look like a pajama shirt? Can you see that?
Slightly. In fact, when we first got on, I thought, I know she's not still in her pajamas, but
you did think it was a pajama shirt? See, I haven't worn this out.
I thought it looked similar to one, but I knew you wouldn't be wearing your pajamas to record.
No, I wouldn't. But I found this shirt in TJ Maxx. And when I first found it, I thought it was adorable. It's, for those of you not watching, it's got like zebras and palm trees on it. And I love the colors.
Kind of like toile.
Yeah, I love the colors. And I tried it on and it fit great and everything. But ever since I brought it home and I try and put it with an outfit, it looks like a pajama shirt, no matter what I pair it with. If I pair it with jeans or a khaki, shorts or a skirt or something, it always looks like I'm wearing a pajama top with real clothes.
So Kathy got half dressed today.
So I thought I'll try it just with recording the podcast and see how that works, because you can't see any other fabric with it. But since you wondered if I was wearing a pajama shirt, then that's also a fail.
No, I didn't wonder. I knew you weren't, but it did cross my mind. It looked a little bit like pajama top.
Rats.
I don't wear pajamas like that though. I don't wear buttons on pajamas.
You don't?
No, because it's just uncomfortable.
Oh.
We probably shouldn't talk about pajamas.
What would you like to talk about?
Well, the kind that we like to wear. Let's just not go there because we could devolve into something that we shouldn't say.
And we don't want to be boorish.
No boorish and immaturity here.
Maturity.
Yeah. So ask me if I thrifted something.
Oh yes. Have you thrifted anything this week, Carla?
I did. I found a knife. Have you ever, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but Hinkle's knives. H-E-N.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the knife block that has knives in it, that like steak knives and well, there's a brand and I've seen them lots of times called Hinkles. Like I said, I don't know if I'm saying it right. Henkels.
Okay.
And I see the blocks all the time at Goodwill because people take the knives out of them and they maybe don't want to store them in the block. But I saw, and they're expensive. I mean, they're like at least $100, sometimes $300 or $400, which knives, I can't do it. Anyway, so I picked it up because it still had knives in it. But a lot of times, like any other thing at Goodwill, like if you see a box that has a Keurig in it, you think, oh, it's a new Keurig. And you open it up and it's their old Keurig that they put in there when they took the new one out. So you always have to look in the box. So the knives, I thought, well, it's just going to be cheap knives, but they were, the whole thing is like new, a set of Hinkle's knives. So there's 6 steak knives and I don't know, there's 6 others and I'm not sure what kind they are. The big, huge butcher looking knife and a serrated knife. And so I'm excited because I don't really have nice knives. And
so you're keeping that, not selling.
Yeah, right. I'm going to keep that.
Good find.
And I looked them up and they were about $125 new. So
wow,
that was my find for the week.
Good job.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to bring up the group, the Facebook group that we keep having people spamming us. And you and I were just talking yesterday and I've banned and deleted at least 7 over the last 2 days.
I know, it's like just recently this has started happening.
Yeah. So I don't know. You and I will have to talk and see. I really would rather not make you have to answer a question or whatever to become part of the group. And I'm not even sure if I can do it at this stage, if it's too late. But anyway, if y'all see something like that in the group, just know that we're trying to get rid of it and you can report it. I think that any member can report it. But usually I'll see it pop up and you will too see it pop up. And we can, if you click the down button, you can choose, to delete anything that person has posted in the last 7 days. It's just really annoying that people don't just get an honest job. And I know, I think that it's spam. It's not even a real person. It's just some bot somewhere that is ruining things. Did we talk about the whole Coliseum thing and not being able to get tickets? I know you and I have, but did we talk about it on here?
Yeah, I don't remember if we talked about that on here or not.
So part of our cruise excursions in October is there's a pre-cruise excursion in Rome. And part of the Rome trip is going to the Coliseum. And anyone can go to the Coliseum grounds. You can walk around the outside of it, but you can't get inside it unless you have a ticket or a ticket. And yeah, skip the line ticket. So we heard from our guy in Italy. Well, he actually lives in Israel, but he does a lot of work in Italy. And they have this huge problem now. It's the same thing that happened with the whole Taylor Swift concert thing a couple months ago, where they've got these computer programs set up to just swoop in as soon as the tickets are available for sale. These bots, whatever that means, computer bots are buying all of the tickets and then they resell them for like 2 or 3 times more than what you could get them for from the original seller. And the original seller is not too disturbed by it because they're selling all of their tickets. So the whatever you want to call it, the burden of selling is now shifted to the person that's bought them. And so apparently our friend there said that it's the Italian mafia that's behind some of this.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So we don't want to mess with them, but we also want to get inside the Coliseum. But I think that's happening in every place, and all these AI issues and computer issues and stuff. It's a whole new world. So
Yeah, the
imagine that's
first
happening here
time
too.
that started popping up in the group, I thought, who is that? What are
Mm,
they talking about?
yeah. So I've heard
Because
some
it
people
didn't dawn
say,
on me that it was spammy,
yeah,
and
yeah. Well, Timu, however you say it. Do you know anybody that's successfully bought anything from them?
mm-mm.
It's like a big Amazon or something, but it's in China. And so I don't really, I've not tried and I'm not going to, but I'm curious if there has been anybody successfully buy anything from them. So anyway, long story short, if you see any of that stuff, if y'all see things pop up in the group, report it and we'll do what we can to get rid of it and not have, I just don't want to worry about
Yeah,
being spammed in the group.
I know it. We're trying to just keep looking up here.
Yeah. And we're trying to tell everybody to look up, but now we're having to say, look down at your computer and report this bad stuff.
Or get out.
Yeah. Well, what else is going on in your world?
Well, we are going to the Kentucky State Fair
Oh, fun.
this Saturday.
Mhm.
So
Funnel cake.
hopefully
Yeah.
all the good food. I love fair food. I have to not eat between now and then.
Yeah. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And Kennedy Waddell is going to show her cows, and so we'll get to watch her do that. And
Good.
yeah, I haven't been there yet. It's in Louisville.
How far is that?
A couple hours.
Oh, that's right. We went through there at some point. Well, that'll be fun. Have a piece of funnel cake with extra powdered sugar on it for me.
I will be happy to do that for you.
And let me know how it is.
I will.
Well, I went over to Katie Balance's yesterday. I hadn't seen her since we've been back, and she made me the best coffee I've ever had.
What?
And it was amazing.
What
It's
was so
iced
special?
coffee.
Oh.
It was, I had to write, I don't know if this is exactly the way she would title it, but it was a shaken brown sugar oat milk iced espresso.
Yum.
It was so good. And I wasn't really expecting to like it that much because I've never had oat milk and I don't honestly even know what oat milk is. I didn't know you could milk an oat, but so she put some brown sugar in the bottom of a glass and then she brewed an espresso. She has one of those, the kind that you have to pack it down in the puck and brew it. So it was a little bit of coffee, strong coffee. And then she poured that over the brown sugar and then she put a little ice in it and shook it. I don't know why, I guess to dissolve the sugar in there. And then she poured oat milk in it. And then she put more ice in it. And it was so good. I was thinking when she poured it, she put it in this jar for me. And I was thinking, I hope she doesn't mind if I take this jar with me because I won't be able to finish it before I had to go. And I mean, I sucked that thing down in about 20 minutes and it was amazing. So now I'm trying to figure out how I can do that at home. I don't have an espresso.
Are you going to use oat milk too, or just regular?
I would.
Milk?
I mean, it was good. It was good exactly how she did it. I don't know how many calories are in it, but I don't want to think about that. I don't want it to ruin it for me.
That sounds good.
Yeah. I'm going to try it, especially with my nugget ice. I think it would be even better.
Oh, yes. That would be so good.
Yep.
Well, when you perfect it, you can make one for me.
I'll do my best.
I'll fly out there and drink it.
Okay. Just for coffee.
Just for coffee.
Yeah. Well, we probably should, unless you have something else you want to.
I don't. I'm ready. And you had a good segue phrase a while back. You said, get a real job.
Get a real job. That's true.
Get a real job.
About it. Yeah.
So speaking of.
Speaking of getting a real job, this topic, it's something that I think will be especially interesting maybe to young moms who are home with their kids. I just thought it would be fun to talk about having a side hustle, as they call it these days, which, a side hustle, I had to define it because hustle back in our day had a little bit of a negative connotation. Yeah. But now, I mean, side hustle, it just means that it's work performed for income supplementary to one's primary job. It's also, people call them side jobs or side gigs or just a part-time job is what I probably would have called it back in the day. I'm sorry about the cough. Someday it'll go away. But I thought it would be interesting to talk about different side jobs, side gigs that we can have, because a lot of times when we're home with our kids, if we're home with our kids, and even if we're not, like where we are, where you and I are right now, there's an interest in making some extra supplementary income for our homes. And there's it just seems like there's so many ways that we can do that these days, especially with so many people working from home. So there's different jobs that have come up now that didn't used to be so readily available for at home. So I thought it would be kind of fun and maybe informative to talk about this. And next week in the group, when this airs, we can open it up and have some ideas from other people of what kind of jobs they're doing to make some
I'm already
extra
looking
money.
forward to that. You've done quite a few things through the years, haven't you? I mean, I know about you sell things that you've thrifted, and that's just from what I've heard, the things that you found and what you've been able to sell them for, that's been pretty profitable.
It has at times. And I think that I probably could have kept better records as far as knowing, what, and I did for a while, what I spent, what the fees were that were associated with selling, how much the shipping costs. Of course, the buyer pays shipping normally, but
packaging.
One of the things I didn't think about, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth probably later in the podcast, but what about the things that you don't sell? So here you've spent maybe $10 on something and you didn't sell it. And so if you've bought, just for example, if you've bought 10 things for $10 each, you spent $100 and you get really excited because you sell one thing for $100, but you've got 9 things that you haven't sold, then you really haven't made any money. So, you kind of have to have a spreadsheet and keep track of your expenses and things. So
see what your actual profit is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which businesses do that all the time, cost of goods and reports and things like that. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later, I think. Yeah, I've had lots of jobs when the boys were little, like when they were little bitty. In particular, I remember when I think Jordan was about 3 and Jake would have been 1 or maybe a little older than that. I babysat a lot. I kept one little girl for, I don't know, at least a year, maybe more. It must have been a couple of years because I kept her little brother when he was born for a while. Her name was Alyssa and Jake called her Wissa. So we still call her Wissa when I see her. But that was an easy way to make a little extra money and not be able to not have to go anywhere. She would bring her to me every day and I was home anyway. So that's something that I did. I also, there was a time period where I cleaned a bank. We lived in Dripping Springs. There's a Wells Fargo, and I think it's always been Wells Fargo. It may have been something else earlier, but I don't even remember how I got the contact, but a man called one day and asked, it wasn't just random, it was a friend of a friend, but he asked if I would be interested in cleaning the Wells Fargo and after hours. So I could go anytime after like 5 until about 7 the next morning. And I didn't really want to go at 5 because family stuff was going on then. But I would go down there around 9 o'clock and spend a couple of hours like every other day. And I would vacuum. It was I didn't like going there at night by myself too much.
That would be a little scary.
Yeah. I mean, it was Dripping Springs, so it wasn't like super scary area. But I would vacuum and clean the bathrooms and empty the trash. And it was kind of fun going behind the counters and seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff and wash the windows and things like that. So I made some extra money I did that for a couple of years. I did bookkeeping for a while and I could do that from home because I had QuickBooks on my computer. I did some editing and layout work when John was co-editor of Gospel Journal. I helped with some of the layout for that, proofreading. I've just done some numerous things like that have made a little money along the way, and I enjoyed it. So have you done anything like that?
Not really. I did Mary Kay. I sold Mary Kay for about a year. And at the very end of it, when I checked everything, I did keep records and all that stuff. I broke even. So, and to Mary Kay people out there, I don't think it was the company's fault. I'm just not that good of a salesperson. And I probably needed, it's like with most things, you're going to get out of something what you put in it. And I was all about ordering, the flyers and the inventory and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't as good at just really being more intentional about getting the sales. And so I only did that for a year, and I've been paid to speak and write through the years, but that's not really, I don't really consider that a side hustle because I don't do those things to get paid. You
Right.
you just, that's,
True.
you know how it is. They just kind of ask you to come speak and then they'll usually give you something for your trouble. So, other than that, since we've been married.
Yeah. Well, I thought about, but our daughters-in-law have had lots of different side gigs over the years. Erin, back before they had Jackson, she and her mom owned an embroidery shop. It's called Stitches and Such, and it was monograms and embroidery and heat press, and it was a lot of fun. I worked with them for maybe 3 or 4 years. I'd go down there every Tuesday and Thursday. So this was like 2012 until 2016, something like that for me. And they had a little longer on either end. And lots of fun. And we'd go to market. That was lots of fun. Have you ever been to market for buying? So they have, so you order things, you don't take them home that day, obviously, because you're ordering for your shop, but you go and you see all of the things that are going to be coming out in the fall, and then you can order them. But they also have a cash and carry area that it's a lot of like cheap jewelry and scarves and I mean, it's a whole warehouse full of stuff, and like bows for little girls. And so we would take big bags and they would buy, 25 of them for $1 each, and then maybe sell them for $4 or $5. And so cash and carry was fun too, because you got to take it home. Anyway, I digress. That was market. I know a lot of people have done that before, but Erin, she also had, for a while, she did a bridal show. So this is right after she and Jordan got married, and she's one of the most organized people in the whole wide world. And she has lists and spreadsheets and keeps excellent records. So this bridal show, she arranged to rent out convention center. This was in New Braunfels. So it was about, 30 minutes south of San Marcos, where they lived at the time. And then she approached vendors for who might be interested in selling to brides, like cake bakers and flower sellers. What would you call it? Florist, and photographers. And I don't know, what else do you need for a wedding? All of those things, bridal dress companies. So she would call them, or she would visit them and ask if they wanted to rent space to come display their stuff. And she did that for several years, and she made some money off of that and got really good experience.
That's neat.
Yeah, it was fun. She had there was one year or maybe a couple of years where she asked some of the girls from McCarty Student Center if they wanted to be a wedding dress model. So they had kind of a style show, a dress show at this bridal show. That was fun. I had forgotten about that until I asked her about it, and she reminded me that she had done that. So that was one of the things she did. She's also done an online teaching academy. VIP Kids is what it's called. And there's lots of different ones. So online, she would be teaching kids in other countries. I want to say she did some in China that they wanted. So maybe some parents over there want their kids to learn English. And so Erin would teach them English. She had this little setup. If I remember right, it was just in the corner of her kitchen or dining room. And she had little charts hanging up behind her, and her computer in front of her. And sometimes it would be in the middle of the night.
I was going to ask what time of day she had to do that. Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, because it's different time over there, obviously. So she taught in this VIP Kids. And I know lots of women that have done that. And then now she's got kids. She and Jordan have 3, and they don't have Stitches and Such anymore, but she kept one of the big embroidery machines, monogramming machines. And she does that from home. It's in one of the rooms in their house. And she takes orders from people there in Katy. She has a little clipboard that sits on her front porch, and people will, if she's not there, people will drop their things off on their front porch. See, it's Houston, but it's a little part of Houston that's still, it's old town Katy. It still feels like an old fashioned little community. It's really neat. So they'll drop their things off, and they fill out their little order form on the clipboard, and she'll do it for them. So she's one of the busiest women I know. At any time we're there, the kids will be running around. I don't know how in the world they haven't had a needle puncture their finger, because that machine it's high powered machine. Of course it's high, but Clara especially can find a way to get up there. So she's got embroidery going on, monogramming going on all the time. Alyssa, she did a cupcake business for a while. She baked them in glass jars, and they were so cute. So, the little tiny glass jars, she would bake cupcakes and frost them. And so she did that for a while. Now she and Jake are in property management. They have, they had one in the Gatlinburg area, and they ended up selling that. Now they have several cabins in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, and they live in Fort Worth. So that's one thing that they've done. So anyway, I know that there's lots of different things that people do, and I wanted us to talk about that, maybe give everyone some ideas for things that they can do, because being able to do from home is so convenient when you've got kids. And so thought we would just talk about some of the pros and cons.
I'm trying to think. Emily has kept children. Before they had Rich, she was helping keep somebody else's child. And Janelle is, I don't know what you call it, but she takes old pieces of furniture and sort of upcycles them and makes them look beautiful and repurposes them, paints them up and turns around and sells them. And she also makes jewelry. And I'm not sure that she's actually started selling that or not, but you can't see the ones I'm wearing today because of the headphones, but she made some leather leaf earrings that I wear all the time. And she's really good. And she's talked about selling it, but I don't know if she's actually started selling it or not. But I've always envied people that had these creative talents that you could actually make money from. My sister, through the years, she's made cakes. She had a business called Chrissy's Cakes, and very talented. And then she sold wreaths for a while that she made. It was called Sophista Creations. So she's always, been able to use her talent and turn it into something that she could sell and make money off of.
So she's artistic and creative.
She gets that from my mom. They both can just paint and make beautiful things and create things. And I tried blogging for a while, and I think that's something that a lot of people are maybe not blogging, but using social media, YouTube, and things like that to monetize. And have had success with that. I had sort of fun with the blogging, but it took hours and hours and hours and hours, and it just I didn't realize it was going to consume my life that much. So that only lasted a few months. But since we're on that topic, just want to remind everybody that we don't monetize this podcast. Somebody asked me that recently, because they said when you listen to it on Spotify, there's an ad that plays at the end, which I didn't know. I've never paid attention to that. But that's not, for our listeners, that's not our ad. We don't have anything to do with that. We don't monetize this podcast. We don't monetize the YouTube channel. This is just us having a conversation, unedited, unscripted, and hoping people enjoy listening.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't think about that, because we've talked.
This is not a side hustle for us,
right? I mean, it's work, but it's not something that we're trying to make any money off of, and we don't plan to. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, of monetizing, like when you were doing your blog, and I've got some information that I got from Christy Huntsman that I'll talk about in a minute. But I'm curious, like, how do you monetize on YouTube?
It has to do with viewership. So subscribers for a blog, email subscribers. On YouTube, it's viewers. You have to have so many views and so many hours worth of viewing hours. And so once you hit a certain number, and I don't know what it is now, like 100,000, then they'll start playing ads. And so you can monetize your YouTube channel in that way. So your whole goal, that's why they're always saying, subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, make a comment, because all of those things give you more views, more access, make you more visible. And so with the blog, it kept getting bigger and bigger. I thought I would just be able to share a few pictures and talk about these recipes, but it was, if you want people to see it, if you want Google to share it, you need to have a video in there.
Yeah.
And it needs to be a YouTube video. And so then I had two things going, and then you need to have Instagram, and this week the reels are the it thing, but next week it'll be shorts, and the next week after that, it's constantly evolving, and you have to keep up with it. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. I know a lot of people are very successful with it, but it's definitely one of those things where it's a commitment for sure.
Yeah. You need people You need a
Yes.
staff to be able to do
Yeah,
that.
you really do. Yeah.
Well, and some of that I feel like I know it's not beyond me, but I don't really feel like I
Mhm.
want to learn, take the time that it takes to learn all of the different apps and the different, keeping up with things is exhausting to me. Keeping up with, like you said, this week it's shorts, next week it's reels.
Mhm.
And I'm just, I guess I'm not willing. If I had to, I would, but I'm just not willing to have my face on a screen, in a screen all the time, learning all that stuff.
Mhm.
But I know that some people, it's just their talent. Some people know and understand, and so more power to them. As far
Mhm.
as selling, I I have been able to do the eBay, the reselling things, because I feel like people are coming to me, and
Mhm.
they're unknown people. It's like, okay, I'm putting them out here on eBay or whatever. So if you want what I have, you come to me, and I don't
Mhm.
have to sell it, because I've never felt like I could sell anything. If I
Mhm.
believe in something, like I believe in scripture writing, and I'll tell
Mhm.
people about it because I believe in the value of it, but I don't want to sell it, and I'm not
Mhm.
going to sell it. It's always going to be free as far as what I do, because I just think um it's just not something I want to sell. I don't want anybody
Mhm.
to feel like I'm selling them something when it comes to something about the Bible, which is why I think you and I don't want to monetize this either.
Well, and that's why the blog appealed to me, because I thought all people are doing is coming to, I was an Amazon affiliate, but they didn't have
Mhm,
to purchase anything, you know?
mhm.
Um, so I thought in that way it would be a way to make money without having that salesman type personality. And
Yeah.
even with the whole farm stand, that's something that we're just hoping to put at the
Mhm.
end of the driveway. And if I have, extra produce or extra things that I've made or herbal salts or whatever I can put out there, if somebody's driving by
Mhm.
and they see it and they want to come look at it and buy some, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think Neil's thinking that it's going to be wildly successful and I'm going to
Mhm.
have our retirement set,
Yeah.
I'm just hoping to make a few dollars each
Yeah.
week. So
You can buy some shoes with it.
that's right.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, some people they just have a knack at
Hmm.
selling.
Yeah.
And, they're the ones that have these crazy popular YouTube channels, and
Hmm.
they're influencers. And I know that when I say the word influencer, it kind of makes me have like a sort of a semi-negative connotation, because I think of, I don't know, Paris Hilton or somebody like that. And I'm sure
Hmm.
there's a newer it girl besides her, but I, I don't want to be that way.
Hmm.
But I know that there are some that are really good, and some things that you really want. And like, I enjoy the Half Baked Harvest. I like her recipes.
Hmm.
It's not her, although I like what she cooks, because she's not just recipes. She's got fashion, and she's such a popular influencer now, that she has the 10 things that I like this week. And
Hmm.
that people are sending her stuff all the time. Try this, try this, try this, and then
Hmm.
post about it. So
Right.
she's getting all kinds of free stuff.
Hmm.
And whether she likes it or not, I don't know. I don't know anything about her personally, but I don't really want to do that. I don't really. It would be nice to have some income from some things, but not to the point where I feel like I have to, that I'm beholden to somebody to share their product. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Right. Yes. Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
know that there's a family called oh, I can't remember. They're it's a young couple, and they have 3 kids, and they travel everywhere. And I don't know where I got somebody recommend that I follow them. And so I see occasionally they take their kids everywhere, and they they I don't even know if they have a home anymore. They have all these different places that they spend a month or two here or there. And I'm sure that they're supported by that. People want them to come stay in their Airbnb for a month so that they can advertise it. And
Hmm.
so that works for some
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Um, and to the good ones out there, to the ones that are really legit and really concerned about providing quality information for people, then I think more power to them.
Hmm.
But before we go, excuse me,
Excuse
too
me.
much further, I thought we would both take time to cough for a moment. It's just, this time of year is weird for these coughs to be hanging
Hmm.
around. So I guess it's just new way of life, because this is summertime and usually I'm not coughing. But anyway, I thought we'd talk just a little bit about Titus 2 and being keepers at home and what that means, because I think that for some, and I want to be very careful how I say it, because I know that some people have some pretty strong opinions about that being a keeper at home means that you don't work outside the home. If you're, well, I think a lot of people think if you're a mom, it's wrong to work outside the home. And I have to disagree somewhat, because that's taking a passage, I think, further than God intended. And while I stayed home and you stayed home, we both were home with our children, raised our children. You homeschooled, I did not. I still feel like I feel like it's the best, in some ways, because you want to spend all that time with your kids. You have a limited amount of time. God's put these children in your home for a reason, and you're to raise them and to teach them about God and help them to be the kind of human beings that God wants them to be. So that's sobering to me. Yes, we are to be keepers at home for sure. But the passage, and you jump in here too, but this passage isn't just to moms, it's to women. So if we want to hold that to moms, but not women, I think that's taking the passage. It's adding to what God said.
Right.
So if we believe that moms shouldn't have a job when they're raising kids, then I think that would have to extend to all women, because the passage is speaking to women. But Titus 2, verses 3-5 say, older women, that's you and me, by the way, sorry to say, although I don't mind being an older woman. I think there's some good things about it, lots of good things. Older women, I'm reading from New American. Older women likewise are to be reverent in their behavior, not malicious gossips, nor enslaved to much wine, teaching what is good, so that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be sensible, pure, workers at home, kind, being subject to their own husbands, so that the word of God will not be dishonored. So one thing I was surprised about when I looked at this a little more in depth is that teaching them to love their husbands, love their children. Did you know that love is phileo and not agape? I did not know that until yesterday. Yeah, because obviously you think that agape love, that selfless kind of love. And when I've read this passage before, I've thought, why? I know that there are some women out there that really need to be taught, because it doesn't come naturally. Maybe they've had a harder time growing up, and so they have to be taught how to love their family. But that tends to come naturally. But phileo love is more of a friendship and an affection kind of love. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but it's like when Neil says, do you love me? Yes. And then he'll say, but do you like me?
Yeah. I've heard that before. Sometimes not so much. Not you, Neil, sorry.
Right.
But I found there was a blog that I came across when I was getting ready for this, and it's a woman named Mary Robbins, and the website is called Parent Reform, and I don't know anything about it, so I'm not endorsing it. I thought what she said was interesting. She said the word is philoteknos. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but it means to be fond of one's children, to delight in them, to be a child lover, as in a lover of your own children. Comes from two Greek words, phileo and teknon. So phileo, having a strong affinity or preference, or loving, or having someone that's beloved. And then teknon, which is offspring or children. But she quoted someone else named Carolyn Mahaney, who said this. I think this is a neat quote. She said, "It is a rare experience to meet a woman who doesn't sacrifice for her children and daily lay down her life to serve them. We are good at that kind of love. What is rare is a woman who delights in her children, takes pleasure in them. She loves being a mother. She relates to them with a tender, warm affection. Aren't there days where if someone was observing what was going on at our house, they would see an unhappy, irritated, exasperated mom, yet all the while sacrificing for her family, doing the homeschooling, doing the laundry, cooking the meals? It's loving our children and husband with tender, affectionate love amidst all the sacrifice that is harder for us to achieve."
That is so good.
Isn't it?
That is so, it takes it beyond duty. You're not playing the martyr. You're not duty bound. You're doing it because you delight in them.
Exactly. And I hate to admit it, but there were times that I did not delight in my children. I loved them, always loved them. Yeah. But when you're riding in the car and they're screaming and toy throwing and, he touched me. That
That's
kind of
not very
stuff.
delightful. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
it's not.
That's not
It's
delightful.
not. But I just thought that was so interesting. That's kind of a side note because, we're talking about side jobs here, but I just thought it was so
such a
interesting.
valuable point because when somebody delights in something, it comes across in their demeanor and how they talk about it and how they talk to the people in their home, how you talk to your husband, how you talk to your children and about them, just like, not to trivialize it, but just like gardening. I'm looking outside the window at our raised beds. I delight in that, but it's still hard work. There are things that I don't care for. I hate weeding. Ugh. And you just turn your back and
but you have your little hoary that you can
yes, I do. And it's always there. It always needs attention. It's not fun. There are things I don't like: bugs. I don't like poison ivy. There are lots of things about it that can be drudgery, but I still delight in it because of so many good things in the end product, and I enjoy it. And that comes across typically if somebody asks me about it, they can tell that that's an interest of mine and that I delight in it because of my demeanor when I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking about it, I'm not focusing on all the bad things. And I think it's kind of the same in our homes, to love our husband and our children. That's something that's going to come across in our demeanor and how we talk about it, how we talk to them, from drudgery and duty to delight and love. And this is an honor and a beautiful thing to be a part of, a privilege.
Yeah. Well, that
doesn't mean it's not hard and that there are things that, aren't fun about it.
Well, when I read that, it was pretty convicting to me because if I have any regrets, I don't have any regrets, serious regrets about child raising, but I think I do have in this area in some ways, just being impatient and being maybe harsh when I shouldn't have. Well, you should never be harsh. It just comes out sometimes, but I know that my kids know that I loved them, but I know that there were times that it came across that I didn't like them very much. And so I have regrets in that area. And I think I wish I had been more intentional. So I wanted young moms to think about that and don't do what I didn't do enough of, or do what I didn't do enough of, and show affection and for your children. I also wanted to bring
Go ahead.
No,
I was just reading this chapter in the book that I told you in a previous podcast that I found, Sally Clarkson's The Life-Giving Table. And by the way, I'm so glad I have it. It is so good. I highly recommend it. But this chapter that I just read, before I even knew what we were going to be talking about, she was talking about having joy in the home and how sometimes we find that very hard to accomplish because there's always something going on that needs addressed. And I'm sorry, excuse me.
Just give us a big cough.
Yeah, let me just do that in everybody's ear. But, even when your children are small or even when they're grown, they're going through a trial or a difficulty or a hard time, or somebody got their feelings hurt, or somebody's facing a health challenge or a job problem. There's always something, or people are just weighed down by what's going on in the world around them and, all this heaviness. And so how can you find joy, and how do you deal with when sometimes it doesn't even feel right to live celebratory lives and joyful lives in the midst of all this pain and suffering? And she has this really beautiful chapter on, but don't you think that God wants you to show your children that even in all of this, the Christian life is the best life? And she said, when your children are going through things, and, listen to them and empathize with them or sympathize with them. Number one. Number two, remind them of God's promises to always be with them. You don't always have to come up with the answer for the wise, but remind them of God's promise to always be with them. And then number three, take their mind off of it by putting on something good. And she said, take them to their favorite coffee shop, order in a pizza and watch a movie, or go out to the woods and take a walk and, say, let's go get a hot cocoa or whatever. And she said, more often than not, just remembering God's goodness helps them feel like we're going to get through this. And I thought that was so good. And isn't that true in our own homes, that we can control that environment? I think that's a little bit of a sidetrack there, but
Well, I think is very relevant. And I remember being taught that our home needs to be a tornado shelter
Mm-hmm.
where when our kids come home, they know that it's a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mentioned a little bit last week when we were talking about, interview stuff, that there's a wall that all of us kind of have to put up when we're away from home, just to protect our inner selves from people that are wanting to take advantage of us. And so when you come in the door at home, there ought to be no walls. There ought to be no need to feel like we have to put up those walls.
Yeah.
And I loved that. I think of anything, there was so many good things that you got and you read from my family. But when Jordan said that I made home feel like home, that just warmed my heart, because that's one thing I really tried to do is make our home a safe place. And safe place, safe space, that's such a buzzword now, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you walk in the door, you know that you're going to be okay, that the world, even though it's crazy outside, that God is here. And I mean, he's out there too, but you feel him more here. And so moms who have side hustles, we can still do this. We can do this. And we have to do this. I wanted to mention, give me a chance to cough here. My daughter-in-law, Courtney, she is one of the smartest people I know. She's genuinely just such an intelligent woman. And she has a full-time job. She works for HEB, which is a big grocery store in Texas. She started out with them in college. If I remember right, she started out in the cake decorating section, and she just kind of worked her way up. And now she's pretty high up. She does some pretty important stuff. It's a very flexible job though. So she can schedule her hours, and she's able to be home with Livy 1 or 2 days a week. And Micah, with his job, is able to be home with her one day normally. And then Frank and Lori, her other grandparents. Anyway, I bring Courtney up because she has been hurt by some things that people have said, not intentionally to hurt her, but things that people have said about stay at home moms versus working moms. And I know we don't want to get into that whole controversy, because we're just not. And I think we're making it plain what we believe about that passage. But I love watching Courtney with Livy. It's just so evident and so obvious how much she loves Olivia. Livy, we call her Livy. And she is so intentional with her time, and she gets down on the floor with her, and she just adores her. And so I think we just have to be so careful when we say you don't really love your child unless you're home with them all the time. And it's challenging. I know it's challenging sometimes for them to figure out where she's going to be. And, it adds a different wrinkle to your life when you have to figure out daycare situations. But I just think we have to be empathetic, sympathetic, careful, and understand that there are different situations for different people. And we can't make a blanket statement, especially where God has not made one.
Well, it's kind of like that homeschooling versus public schooling. Some people have made this a comment that if you don't homeschool your children, you must not love them as much as you should, that just makes me cringe. And it made me even not want to tell people that we homeschooled, because I didn't want to kind of be lumped into that mentality. And the truth of the matter is, God has told us what our responsibilities are as husbands and wives, moms and dads, but the particulars of how we fulfill those roles is left up to us. And every family gets to determine that for themselves. At the end of the day, we're the ones responsible. And we need to take that very seriously with our choices and prayerfully. And that falls into line with, if you're going to stay at home or work outside the home, if you're going to homeschool your kids or send in the public school or private school or whatever your options are. Even when it comes to the dating rules, remember the big thing about dating versus courtship and all that. If you make a choice for your family prayerfully, then that's going to be the right choice for your family. You can't say this is the only way to do it and then bind it on somebody else or try to make them feel less than if they're not choosing that same path. because God doesn't say that that's how we have to do it. We get to choose for ourselves what that's going to look like. And I think that most moms who are working outside the home, they didn't do that negligently. They've thought about that. They've thought about how to make sure they're still taking care of their homes. They're still taking care of their husbands and their children if they have them. And I'm not saying that there aren't working moms out there who are neglecting that. There may be.
Yeah.
I also believe that there are some stay-at-home moms who are neglecting to be keepers at home.
Exactly.
You, regardless of the choices that you've made, you can still neglect that just as easily by being a stay-at-home mom. You can stay on your phone all the time and go shopping all the time and watch TV or whatever it is, but I just think we need to be careful. The command is there and it's to be taken seriously, but how we fulfill that is left up to each individual family.
So well said. And I remember when you and I first got to know each other, and I was almost a little afraid to tell you that our boys were in public school, because it has a negative connotation sometimes, and for a good reason in a lot of cases. We won't even go down that path, but sometimes there are situations where it's a bad thing to be in public school, others, and it's not. So maybe at some point, another topic we can talk about, or maybe it'll be a subtopic, is how do you feel strongly about something without binding it on someone else when it's an opinion? Because I think that this falls into that area. But just looking at the definition of that word that's translated keepers at home, New American Standard says workers at home. ESV says working at home. New King James Version says homemakers. The New Revised Standard Version says a good manager of the home. The New International says busy at home. It's one word, and I won't try to say it, but it's here I am going to try to say it. No, I'm not going to try to say it, but it means basically carrying out your household responsibilities. It means organizing and managing and being a worker in your home. And so how we do that, like you said, how we do that is an individual decision. And we have to let people make up their own minds for what works best in their own families, because it works. It's different for everyone. It made me, there's another side reference, 1 Timothy 5:13 and 14, which I thought was interesting, because it says, this is also, it's very similar, but it says, at the same time, they also learn to be idle as they go around from house to house, and not merely idle, but also gossips and busybodies, talking about things not proper to mention. Therefore, I want younger widows to get married, bear children, keep house, and give the enemy no occasion for reproach. What I thought was kind of interesting about that is that talking about being busybodies, going from house to house, it's like the Titus 2 passage is the opposite, saying that you're keepers in your own home. You don't need to keep someone else's home with your busybodiness going around from house to house.
Or tell them how to keep their home.
Keep your own home, guide your home, manage your home, rule your home. In 1 Timothy 5, that passage is oiko despoteo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
it sounded fancy.
I think it did. But I see the word despot in there. It means you're the ruler of your home. You manage your home. You are the one that's in charge of things. So I think as a mom, as a wife, as the woman in the home, we have the responsibility to guide the home, flavor the home, rule. We're not we are still subject to our husbands, but we are the ones that manage the home. And that's what this is talking about.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, let's be really careful what we take to mean what a keeper at home is. Does it mean that you have to be at home all the time? I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can take that goes too far, and we don't want to go too far with that.
It sounds like the Proverbs 31 woman had a side hustle.
Yeah, she was quite busy woman.
Yeah, buying and selling land, dabbling in real estate, and
she was a busy
along
woman.
with her other responsibilities at home.
Yeah. So setting that aside, now that we've kind of talked about that a little bit, I wanted us to just talk about some different ways, some different things that you can do on the side, because I did a little information gathering from some different people that I thought was interesting. And I just got a text from Alyssa because I had asked her earlier this morning, didn't give it to her early enough, but her baked goods, so cupcakes, were that name of that business was Bake My Day.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, it was really cute. She did videography. I forgot about this. They are very, very talented with videos. Jordan is an excellent videographer too. But they would film weddings and put them together in this little montage, which, basically is a modern day photo album, because, you and I have probably some cheesy 1980s or you were 90s wedding photos. Remember those pictures where the bride and groom were standing with their heads looking down and the wedding part, the church building is below. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So anyway, they did some of that. So Jake and Alyssa with the real estate, she says, and I probably should read by myself before I read it. But anyway, she said it was a family time decision. It's an industry that allows flexibility with family on your terms for the most part, which is the lane we wanted to be in as we raise kids this season of life. She mentions that you can flip real estate. You can do house flipping if you're talented in that area. Short-term rentals, which is what they do. Long-term rentals, which is a thing. You can rent out your home, you buy a home somewhere, invest in a home and rent it out for unlimited amount of time, which is basically letting someone else make the mortgage payment for you. You can learn to be a realtor, do property management. So that's some of the things they've done. So just to list out some of the things that I thought of, and then I'll elaborate on some others. There's answering phones and messaging companies where you are at home, but your phone rings and you take messages for a doctor or for a realtor or for, I'm trying to think especially I think medical businesses, you're taking messages and you pass them on to the office and they take care of it from there. But you're kind of the middleman for answering phones. There's things like cosmetology. I heard one of our new woman students, she's only 18. Her name is Chloe. She married Seth Pierman, but she is a licensed cosmetologist. So she went to, I believe, a trade school and at only 18 years old. And I think about how you could do this. I don't know the legalities, but
My
could
mom
provide.
did that.
Really? So do you know more about it? Like the legalities involved or?
No, but I just remember that, my dad was a preacher. She went to cosmetology school and then so that she could cut hair.
Yeah.
So,
but that's something that we're always going to need because you're not ever going to have an AI bot that's cutting your hair.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those machines that wheels up behind you and comes down over your head and then it's gone. Yeah.
You just type in the style you want, the cutting style you want.
Yeah. But I thought, that's a great thing because you could do that from home. People could come, it would be, you'd have to do a lot of research and be careful. Or you could go and provide that service for people who are housebound. I just started thinking about how that would be something that people who are interested in doing hair, nails, makeup, whatever, could do that on the side. Bailey Jones is talking about doing that as well. There's data entry. That is a big thing now that people do from home. When I looked into, when I Googled side hustle, a lot of things that came up, freelancing was the number one on every list that I looked at. And I'm not even sure what that means. I know that you can consult. You might do graphic design. Do you know anything about freelancing, what you might do?
Editing, writing.
Editing what?
Other people's blogs or advertisements or business models or just all kinds of things like that.
So editing means like checking spelling, or is it more than that?
Sometimes it's just proofing and sometimes it's here's our information. We want you to write the descriptive paragraph about it. Stuff like that.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So freelancing is a big thing, which you can do at home. I mentioned that Erin had done VIP Kid, but there's online tutoring. There's so many different companies that you can do that with, and you can do it here in the States, overseas. So I think next week when we air this, we can maybe include some information about that. especially if you have a degree in education, if you're a teacher and you're home with your kids, that would be a great way to make some money. You can do dog walking and dog sitting. And I think this is a huge thing now. People are so into their pets. And if someone has a job, full-time job, and they're outside the home, they need someone to come take their dog on a walk, just get them out of the house and entertain their dog. So I think,
or even farm sitting.
Yeah.
Because people with, homesteading is growing more and more, and people want to go on vacation and then want to leave, but they need somebody to come over and take care of their animals while they're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my nephew does a lot of house sitting, and that's a big deal too. And sometimes he could literally all summer go from house to house sitting for people. So that's a good idea. There's photography. I think about Heather Jones has a pretty successful photography business. Jordan does this. He sells his images that he does from national parks and outdoor things. He has an Etsy store now. I think that this is pretty competitive because there's a lot of people that do it. But if you are talented with your camera, then that's something that you could do. You could set up Christmas photos. I know that my cousin's husband does every year. He'll do like cookies with Santa, and they set up a little corner. I guess it's in their house, has a Christmas tree, and you bring your kids to them in their Christmas pajamas or whatever, and they take photos that you can use for your Christmas cards, stuff like that. So I would imagine that photography has a lot of areas open.
Cassie Atkins does that, and she's a beautiful photographer, and she does. She's just now built her own greenhouse and grown her own flowers all the way around it, so that now people can come to their property. And she does these she just started these things called garden minis, where you can sign up for these little mini sessions and stand in the midst of her flowers in this beautiful setting and have pictures taken, and it's looks really good.
Sounds like she's used her imagination as far as how to develop her business. And that to me is like your imagination. That's what's going to take you places, when you can think up something that other people need, that you can do something that someone else can't, and you can provide a service. And that's the definition of being inventive, I guess. There's Airbnb and Verbo and other platforms where if you have the means and the ability to purchase another home and use it to rent out, I think depending on location, you have to research the area that you're planning to do this in, because if there's nothing that draws people there, obviously it's not going to be a good investment. But
and that's what Hillary Hammer does. They have property down in I think Orange Beach, somewhere around there, a little beach property that they went down and renovated it, and now they rent it out.
Yeah. Our friends John and Kim Moore have quite a few cabins in the on the beach. I don't remember exactly where, in Alabama, I think. What's the one you like to go to in Alabama?
Gulf Shores.
Gulf Shores, yeah. I think they have cabins there. They have some in Gatlinburg that will house sometimes 25 people, and it's expensive. Jake and Liz have one that will house a lot of people, but if you split it with 4 or 5 other families, and then everyone has their own bedroom, so that's something that is seems like more and more popular. There is graphic design that people can do freelancing with, and if you're talented with drawing, and I don't even know what programs, because I'm not, but I know that like Wes Autry does some of this, and Michael Hite can do it. Just graphic design is, if you're talented with that, there's always a need for that. Go ahead.
Our associate minister, David Chang, just left. He moved up to Ohio because that's where his fiance is, but he was so good at doing all of our graphic design for all of our events that Lehman Avenue decided to hire him on. Like our graphic artist guy, for all these things, and still be able to use his talent there. And he's going to be in Ohio, but do that for us here.
Good. So he'll be basically, that's a side hustle for him.
Yeah.
Okay. I've thought about bus driving. This anytime you drive through, especially a small town, it seems like they'll have a bus parked at the main intersection, and it'll say, "We're hiring. We need parents or anyone to drive a bus." And that's something that you can do It's usually early in the morning for, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, and then in the afternoon. So it's not a full-time job, but they pay pretty well. So if you thought about driving a bus, that's a little daunting to me to think about driving a big bus, but some people might really be good at it. There's one that I saw, just the Etsy shops. And I'm sure there's other platforms besides Etsy. Like I said, Jordan has a store there that he has his photography in. I saw that Bobby Ross, he's the editor for Christian Chronicle. His daughter knits these very interesting sweaters. I'll have to link them next week. They have words. She knits the sweaters and they have the words all over them, and they're very busy and they're very artsy. And her Etsy, or maybe it may not be an Etsy store, but whatever it is, her business is called I'd Knit That. And she knits the most interesting things. There is, well, we mentioned YouTube influencing. I'm thinking about your farm stand that people could do. There's network marketing where there's all kinds of things that people can sell. And I think of the original Tupperware parties. My mom sold Tupperware for a while. I think the key to that, Pampered Chef. There's books. I remember Home Interiors from the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
Yes, I had so much of their artwork and candles and
shampoo. There's jewelry. There's health and fitness things. And I think the key to that is being really passionate about what it is that you're selling.
Yeah.
And
essential
the ability
oils.
To sell. Yeah. Things like that. So I think that there's lots of opportunities for that. There's art. I had written down a list of people that I thought of. Paige Waddell.
That's the first person I thought of.
Excuse me. We talked about this actually a few days ago. She does watercolors of people's homes. And I don't know, she's got a job. She works for a nursery here in town and doesn't have as much time. So I'm not 100% sure she's still doing it as often. But she did this for Wayne and Wheezy Burger because they'll be selling their house. Yeah. And she did one for my aunt who had moved out of her home. And then our kids had her do one for us. And it's the neatest thing because she'll just take a picture of someone's beloved home, maybe that it's a home they grew up in or somewhere that they're having to move from. And she makes a watercolor out of it. And so I will link that next week. I'll double check with her if she's still doing it. But she does the neatest art.
They're so good.
They are.
They're really good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
She did. This is something else. I didn't think about it being a side hustle that she could charge for. She did it for free for us, but I had her come to kind of a class for the student women. We did one night. Her and Pam Randall did a different one, but kind of like a painting with a twist kind of deal. And we had all the supplies, the watercolor paper, and she provided several things, and she just taught us how to do a watercolor. And that was a lot of fun. That would be something you could do for birthday parties. But then Chantel Swain also has an art. She has a brick and mortar store up in Alaska, but she has a website. She's going to be a PTP. I love her thing. But that's a side gig for her because she's a mom of 3, almost 4. And so she does that. I'm sure she spends lots of hours doing it. There's medical billing. I talked to my friend Alice Stone, who had done that years ago, and she said it's a little harder to do now, but that's still something that you can do from home. Oh, excuse me. Carla Sparks does cake decorating, and she does the most adorable cakes. And her little business is called Spark of Whimsy because her name is Carla Sparks. And I got to her too late. I was going to ask her some questions about it, but she's also, I believe, the church secretary. And by the way, she has a really neat podcast now.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. On books. So book lovers will want to check it out. What's the name of it? I
want to say it's something about tales from childhood bookworms or something like that. Yeah, it's really, really cute.
We'll have to look that up.
Yeah. We'll link that next week. But she does beautiful cakes. I don't know. Anytime I've ever tried to decorate a cake, and I'm not even talking about, writing on it or anything like that. I can't even frost a cake successfully.
Same.
The cake sticks to the frosting. And so I'm always in awe of people that can do that. She's not the only one. I thought about Andrea Warren's. She has a little cookie I say little, I don't know how little it is, a cookie decorating business called Sweet Andy's. I don't know if it's just cookies, but she does amazing stuff too. So
Mhm.
there's always,
And
if you're
Jill
talented,
Jackson.
does
Jill
she do that too?
Jackson. Yeah, I think hers is called Jill's Bites. She has a Facebook page, but they look amazing.
So if you're good at that, that's something pretty neat that you can do. Julie Dilbeck, she drove for Uber or Lyft, one or the other. And again, I asked her too late. She was going to get back to me later. So I think that's something you can do on the side, whether it's, later in the evening, maybe you can set your own hours. Same with DoorDash. And I think there's Uber Eats and there's other different delivery businesses. So if you have a car, you can do something like that. Let's see. I talked to Liberty McClarty. She's a pretty recent graduate of Bear Valley, and she's a young mom. She has one little girl named Gentry, and she, I'm not exactly sure. It's not knitting. But she makes, I said it wrong earlier. It's not bridles, but she makes horse tack. I'm not sure exactly what part, not bridles, but, I would go look it up, but it would take me too long. Anyway, she's always been a horse lover, and you can see that when you see some of her pictures. But I asked her how she got into it and to give me a little information about it. And she said, I found something that I love to do, and it gives me time for myself and a feeling of self-accomplishment. I fit it in where I can and try to block off time to devote to it when it doesn't take away from Gentry. However, it is something that I'm actively working to grow to create more income for our family. Halters, that's what she's making. I started making halters to keep me in the horse business while I'm in my mama era, but hope to grow the Liberty brand to more things that will involve our family as a whole. So she's got a vision of some things that she wants to do.
Yeah, that's perfect for her.
Yeah, it is. And then Michaela Aiken, she's a current student. She started making braided jewelry, which is really cute. She's got an Instagram called Braided with Love 23. And by the way, Liberty's is called Liberty Tack, Liberty.tack. But Michaela said, I would say, first, it's just something I enjoy doing, and it's something that I can step away from at any time. So I'm not having to sit down for hours at a time to do this, but maybe 10 or 20 minutes here and there. I really don't spend that much time on it. It's not something I'm trying to pursue, just something I enjoy. And if someone would like one, then I can do it. But I try to get up early in the mornings or during nap time, so I'm not taking all my time away from the boys when they're up. She's got 3 little boys. There would also be times I would work on it while they're up and just tell them I'm taking a few minutes to myself to make this bracelet. I think it's important for them to know it's okay for mommy to take a couple minutes away from them and do something, whether that's studying, working out, or maybe a side job. So that's Michaela Aiken. I also talked to my niece, Lauren, and I've mentioned her lots of times on here because she's a bigger thrifter reseller than I ever was. She sells on Poshmark and Mercari and eBay. I think she does most of her business on Poshmark, and she does it at a level I never got to. She says, I started reselling because I was looking for something to do after I had Kaysen, and I had previously started reselling a little bit just from going to Dirt Cheap and finding cute Opal House threshold stuff for really cheap. So if you don't know what Dirt Cheap is, do y'all have one around there?
I don't think so.
It's just it's a kind of a thrift store, but it's a store, and they get a lot of goods from other businesses that are maybe overstock or returns or whatever. So they
have
get
similar stores. Yeah.
Okay. So they have a ton of Target things. So she started out going there, and she would find the cutest, like it was new. It was just a return, customers return that they couldn't resell in the store. So they put it in Dirt Cheap. And so she would get rugs that would be like $400 at the store. She'd get them for maybe 20.
Wow.
And so she started reselling some there. Anyway, she says, I figured out I could go to Austin about once a week and find a bunch of stuff and then come home and list it all throughout the week. We go to our local Goodwill stores a lot too. Kaysen enjoys it because he gets to look at the toys and it gets us out of the house. I don't use anything to track my hours just yet because I do things here and there when I have time. But when he goes to school, I can start treating it more like a business. I'd say I spend 4 to 6 hours a day working on average, 1 to 2 going to a thrift store to source items. And I think it's funny because she'll say, I'm going sourcing today, which sounds so much more professional than saying I'm going shopping today or I'm going thrifting today. She says, I'm going sourcing.
I've heard it called picking.
Yeah, that too. So she, an hour or two going to a thrift store to source, an hour or two during Kaysen's nap, getting the items processed / listed, and then another couple hours in the evening, just sending out offers, reducing prices and packaging, sales and shipping. So, I mean, she spends a good bit of time. It sounds like, 4 or 5 hours a day, sometimes depending, but she can set her own hours. And my brother and sister-in-law are close by, so they keep Kaysen for her sometimes, but I'd say she's successful. She knows what she's doing. And when she can't sell something, she packages it up and sends it to a place that I can't remember. But they take items and they resell for you. So it's kind of like it just keeps on going down the line, but she gets her money back, basically, is what I'm saying. When I was talking earlier about, you might have 10 things, 9 of them don't sell. What do you do with those 9 things? Sometimes I give them back to Goodwill. And it's really funny. Sometimes I'll go to Goodwill and I'll find something that I've put there. I don't realize it. I'll pick it up and go, oh, that's cute. Oh, that was mine. I have to hang it back up. Okay, 2 more, and then we'll wrap it up here quickly. Katie Balance. She's one of the biggest I know she has all kinds of, she's the queen of side hustles. What she told me, the things that she does, she's a social media marketer for Crave Salon, which is in Oklahoma, and she lives in Colorado now. She also is a social media marketer for some bouncy houses. So she gets on social media and advertises for them. She's a content creator. She does photography. She does makeup. I can't remember the name of the makeup company, but she'll get on and she's one that I think does it really well. She does a little video of her putting her makeup on. And she's also a medical scribe. She says, pick a hobby and make a side hustle from it, which basically means if you enjoy something, turn it into a business and make some money at it. You have to enjoy it for it to be successful. She said that the benefits are that you make extra money, whether it's needed for bills, maybe fun money, savings. It can be a creative outlet. It's something to focus on outside of daily regular responsibilities. And then the drawbacks, she says it's a side hustle, so it takes work. It can be distracting if you're not careful about time management. It can be time consuming. It keeps you busy at times when you could be off work instead. So those are some drawbacks. She's a few other thoughts she had. Remember, it's a side hustle, not the main hustle. So time management and keeping the main things is most important. My husband comes before the side hustle. My babies come before the side hustle. Our church work comes before the side hustle. I was talking to her, FaceTiming with her on the phone this morning, actually, while she was telling me these things. And in the meantime, I'm hearing her say, Lucy, quit pushing on Emily's stomach. And Lucy is screaming, Lucy, put that down. And Colton walks by because he works from home. He has an office in the home now. And she says, yes, you can go to work now. Just she's balancing, juggling things. And it's not easy, but she's getting it done, and she makes some side money from it.
And I'm glad she mentioned that, because that is the other side of things. These are all good opportunities. Just remember that anytime you say yes to something, it means you're saying no to something else, and just keeping that balance and deciding if it's worth the time and investment to make it profitable. And I heard an interview the other day about a stay-at-home mom with multiple children that started monetizing a blog just to bring in some extra income so that she could stay at home, keep staying at home. But it got so big, it grew so fast and gained in popularity, and it ended up turning into all these things. And then she started having to hire out all this stuff around her home. She just lost sight of why she started doing it in the first place.
Yeah. Good point. Especially the time management. I think you have to be a good time manager to be able to do this kind of thing, which I've not ever been really good at. That was one of the things something that you told me you were going to ask me. Did I have any tips on time management? When I read that, I laughed out loud because I am not a good time manager. So I'm glad you didn't ask me. One last one before we do our random question and close up. Christy Huntsman has a monetized blog, and it's called From the Roots Up. And it's just the neatest thing. It's a homesteading blog. And this is what she told me. She said, we decided when we were building this house, it would be a great time to start a channel. Lance and I both have tech, video, and public speaking experience. So the video side of things, excuse me, was simple to figure out. I had social media experience from learning the past 10 years how to manage Come Fill Your Cup and keep it up to date on all the social platforms. Really, we document what we would be doing anyway. It does take about 3 times longer to do any one project when you're filming, but we just decided that A, we would do what we could and try to stay consistent, and B, not let filming sometimes be the reason we put it off. That has worked well in giving us balance. Our purpose in doing it is severalfold. First, it's such a fun thing that our whole family works on together. We spend a ton of time together working on projects, and it's so much fun documenting some of those things, even if no one else ever sees them. Another aspect is the training it gives our girls. They're learning so many skills, both in front of and behind the camera, that will serve them well when and if they look for jobs themselves. Another goal is to normalize. I love this one. It's to normalize what a whole Christ-centered family looks like. So many people are aching for content like that on their TVs. Eventually, we hope for it to be a dependable stream of income. The homesteading niche on YouTube is huge. There are a ton of folks that make their living doing it. That may be our goal someday, but for now, we wanted something that will help us have some money by the time we send the girls to school so they don't have to take out student loans. It doesn't pay much initially. We have been doing it a little over a year and have almost 5,000 subscribers, which I think is pretty great.
That is great.
Yeah. AdSense pays us a few $100s a month when you compare that to the time we put in, 1 to 2 hours a day on average, but in busy seasons, it can be more. It's not much, but we're considering all of our time right now an investment. The cool thing is that YouTube perpetually promotes your videos. So if you make what's called evergreen content, which are things that are always watchable and relevant, they keep getting views. So the more content you build up, the more your income. Most people say it takes 5 to 6 years to make a consistent, meaningful income stream. So we've been setting that as our goal. Because of that, it's not a side hustle for someone that wants money now. It's definitely something to build to. But I will say, as much work as it is, it's so much fun to have a project to work on with my family that we're all invested in. Our hope for the future is that one day we can use it to financially support all of the ministry efforts we can only pray for now. So I think from Christy, I take from that is that it's not, what she's doing is not a right now income source. It's an investment. And you mentioned that when you were talking about doing your blog. It's something that you have to work towards. You have to have goals. So there's a lot of things to take from these good things that people have said. So
a lot of great ideas.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It was lots of good things to think about. So if you were going to have a side hustle, just remember to keep the main thing. I think it would be great if we could next week in the group talk about some different businesses that people have and maybe not necessarily try to sell them, but to just list them. And because we don't want for anyone to feel uncomfortable, feel like that anyone's trying to sell anything to them. We don't really want to do that, but we do want to encourage women to raise their families, to take care of their responsibilities in the home. But sometimes it's a reality. We all need to be able to live. And sometimes there's some side jobs that we can do that can help with that. So
that was great. Good idea.
It was fun. Okay. Random question. What is a past or present TV show that you would like to be on?
So this is going to age me, but the first answer that came to my mind, I couldn't get out of my head and I got stuck on it. So I'm going to say Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
Man, that's from the 70s.
I don't know. I guess
why would you want to be on that?
Maybe the 80s, because it had everything. It was like adventure, romance, a little mystery, and not over the top on the romance, but intrigue. She got to be your like typical housewife, but then she was getting caught up in all of these mystery adventure type things, and
so I haven't thought of that in decades.
Well, don't go back and try and watch it. When I was a kid, it is. Oh. It is. But when I was a kid, I loved it. It was one of my favorite shows. And now going back and trying to watch it, it's pretty cheesy. Cheesy. It's so cheesy. It's like MacGyver. I used to love MacGyver. And then I went back and watched the original, not the new one. I went back and watched it and I was like, what? Yeah. I thought that was good.
Things do change the older we get, doesn't it?
Yes. So what's your answer?
Well, I had a hard time tossing up between, like you said, the first thing that popped into my mind and I had to stick with it was Brady Bunch, just because it was, they were a fun family and they were always going and doing fun things and, going to Hawaii and finding a little tiki doll thing that, it's just, it was a fun, innocent kind of time and having 3 brothers and 3 sisters would have been fun. I guess I pictured myself living right in the middle of them. I loved their house. I thought it was the coolest house. That
They
staircase.
had a housekeeper.
Yeah.
They had an Alice.
And they were all in the same, like the girls had their room, all 3 of them, and the boys had their room. And I don't know but it was a toss up between that and Gilligan's Island, because Gilligan's Island was fun too, but I didn't want to be stuck on a desert island. So I'll toss that one out.
I named my Roomba Alice because that's the closest I'll ever get to having a housekeeper. But that would be a fun question for the group, is ask everybody else the same question. What TV show would you want to be in?
Yeah, that was a fun one. Okay, well, John has a follow-up eye appointment that we've got to leave for, so we'll wrap this up. But I loved the conversation and always love your perspective on things and your good sense in dealing with things. So
I think this will be very helpful for especially some younger moms, like you mentioned.
I hope so. That's what we want it to be. We always want to encourage women to look up and to remember what our main purpose is and what our main goal is, and that's getting our families to heaven. And so hopefully some of these things will be helpful along the way. So
also, I like your talk.
Thanks. Thank you. All right. Well, I enjoyed it, and until next time,
keep looking up.
Love you.